everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Montoya Miller and this is a channel where we bridge spirituality with practicality and we get real deep while keeping it real. In this video, I want to really dive into this concept of shadow work and not only talk about what it is, but talk about my personal experience with it and just some different things that I have done to really work through these parts of myself that I really haven't looked at in a while. So the term shadow work is this sort of like mysterious buzzwordy term that is thrown around within the spiritual community, and I wanted to just clear it up and make it very simple and straightforward what exactly we're talking about when we say shadow work, because I feel like there's a lot of mystery around it and people aren't really sure what it is or like how do you even do it. So that is why I'm here. I'm here to bridge these spiritual sort of like out there concepts and bring them back down to earth and make them seem very, very real and very much something that you can make a part of your life and that you can do. It's not something that you need to hire someone to help you with, or it has all these complex steps that you have to do. It's something you can start today, and it's a very simple process. We tend to overcomplicate pretty much everything as human beings. My goal is to really just help us come back to simplifying things and really trusting our own intuition when it comes to this type of work, rather than seeking external advice or constantly always getting permission from other people outside of us on how to go about this type of work, because ultimately there is no right way, there is no one way to do things when it comes to spirituality and personal development. It's all about what feels good for you, what feels right for you, and what's going to resonate with you, because if it isn't resonating, it's probably not going to work. Like if you don't truly believe that something is changing or making a positive impact in your life, then the results are going to reflect that. I want to start off by breaking down the concept of shadow work and talking about what the heck does that even mean? What even is shadow work? In the simplest terms, all this really means is it's the process of uncovering the parts of ourselves that have been suppressed. And there are so many reasons why we suppress parts of ourselves, whether it's past traumas that we've gone through, whether it's the feelings of guilt or shame, or feeling like we aren't proud of certain parts of ourselves or certain ways of being, feeling like if we show these parts of ourselves to other people that will be rejected or it will make us unlovable. Also the desire to attain perfection, which is an illusion, but so many of us deal with perfectionism, and that can really make us want to suppress certain parts of ourselves because we might look at those parts as being ugly or not good enough. Anything that we deem as imperfect, we're going to want to suppress it because we don't want other people to see that part of ourselves. We don't even want to look at that part of ourselves. Fear is another big reason for suppressing these parts of ourselves, whether it's fear that, you know, if we're vulnerable and open up, that people aren't going to like us, they're not going to accept us, they're not going to understand us, or it can even be fear of our own light, fear of our own true power. The thing about shadow work that I really want to drive home in this video, that if you take nothing else away, take this away from this video, because I think this is a very crucial part of it that is just kind of either completely overlooked or skimmed over. And when people talk about shadow work, usually they talk about suppressing the parts of ourselves that we don't love, that we're not proud of. So when we think about shadow work, we're used to only thinking about, you know, the parts of ourselves that we're ashamed of, that we're not proud of. But there is another really important part of shadow work and what our shadows can actually look like. It isn't always just things that we're ashamed of. Our shadows and the things that we suppress can actually also be our greatest gifts and our true talents. I want you to just think about that for a second. Are you suppressing your greatest gifts and your true talents? I feel like so many of us deal with this in our lives where we reach a point when we become very honest with ourselves and we realize that we've been playing small. And oftentimes it's due to fear because, you know, you're comfortable when you're playing small and it's scary to get outside of your comfort zone. But a lot of times it's also because We don't want to make other people around us uncomfortable, and we're worried what they're going to think of us when we truly let our light shine. So our shadows are not only the parts of ourselves that we feel ashamed of and that we feel like are very unlovable aspects of ourselves, but our shadows can also be our greatest gifts, our innate talents that we were put on this earth to express. So you might be wondering, why is this? Why, if we have these amazing talents and these gifts that we were just born with to share on this earth, why do we suppress them? Why does this become such a common thing that we struggle with? And I think oftentimes we can trace this back to our childhood and the beliefs that we grew up being taught to think, whether that was through our parents, people around us, just societal conditioning. Oftentimes our gifts are things that as children, they get rejected by the outside world when we try to share them and express them. And this is because when we're young, we're taught that there are only limited ways to make money and be successful, and success only looks one certain way. And if we're not fitting into that tiny little box of success, then we're wasting our time. We're not being productive, and ultimately we're not going to be happy because we're not going to be successful as society deems it. We're also taught that only certain activities are productive and anything else is a waste of time, and we shouldn't spend our time investing in those things because we need to be focused on making money and earning status and climbing the ladder and getting other people to approve of us. That's an old paradigm that we don't have to play into, but still so many of us are stuck in this, and I think it's because we're not doing the shadow work. We're not fully diving in and looking at this. Let's just say you're a very creative person and you just love to create. You love to throw paint on a canvas. You love to create videos. You love to speak and express yourself in front of other people. You love to write. And as a child, this person who has this amazing, incredible gift of creativity that they're meant to share, they start to express their creativity as a child, and when they're younger it might be fine, but the older they get, society starts to impress upon them that their creativity is actually not valuable. There's no worth to it because you can't make money making art, and all of these stereotypes that we grew up hearing. You have to go get a real job. You have to become a lawyer or a doctor or some business person climbing the corporate ladder if you really want to make it big and be happy and be successful and really have it all. Oftentimes we're told the older we get that we need to focus on more realistic goals. It's time to just stop fooling around and really get serious and focus on a real career. I mean, so many of us have heard you can't make money creating art. You can't make money creating. And it's so ridiculous because everything we do is a creation. But this goes to show us how we can see how it's so easy for us from a very young age to take on these limiting beliefs that aren't even our own and start to suppress our true gifts because we think that we have to conform to society and to this one way of being. And it's so sad because we suppress our own unique gifts and everyone around us is doing this, and before we know it, we're all just kind of like numbed out robots going through the motions. We're unhappy, we're miserable, but yet we don't really understand why, and we aren't really doing anything about it. We just think this is normal, this is life, this is how it is. I go to work and I hate it, but then I get to come home and veg out on the couch and watch Netflix, and that's life. That's just what everybody does. Sharing our gifts is also a very vulnerable act. And if we've been rejected, denied, or shamed in the past for starting to express our gifts, even just one time as a child, oftentimes that's all it takes for us to then suppress it and be like, oh, no, it's not safe to show that. It's not safe to put that out there. I'm just going to push that deep, deep down where no one else is going to see it. And maybe when I'm all alone and have a few minutes, maybe then I will do my art or do this thing that just comes so naturally to me and lights me up. But on a day-to-day basis, that's not a part of me. I can't show that to anybody else. And then this leads to us going through life playing small, trying not to stand out, trying not to ruffle any feathers, just trying to play it safe. And this also leads to us leading a life for other people and just trying to people please our way through life. But the good news is that this can all stop here, because each one of us has the power to transform this entire process. and we begin by uncovering the suppressed parts of ourselves. So this leads me into, how the heck do you even do shadow work? Where do you begin? And as I said earlier in the video, there is no one way. There is no right way. So I'm sharing my personal experience with you because it's what I have experience with. It's what has worked for me, and it's what I'm continuing to do. But everyone has a different practice, a different technique. So take what feels right for you and leave what doesn't. The first and probably the most difficult step when it comes to shadow work is you have to commit to getting radically honest with yourself. For me, there have been parts of myself that I was suppressing that on a subconscious level, I knew that I was suppressing these parts, but there was so much suppression happening and so much shame around this part of myself that I didn't even want to admit to myself that that was a part of me. So the first step for me was actually claiming it and looking at that part of myself and saying, no, this is here because I can feel it, and I'm going to name it. I'm going to call it out. I'm going to be honest with myself, and I'm going to claim this part as a part of me, because it is. What really helped me to do this is I wrote it down. I journaled it out. I finally put it into words down on a piece of paper where I could see it in front of me and look at it and say, wow, I've been afraid to even say this to myself, to even claim this as a part of myself. And now it's here in front of me on a piece of paper. And there's something really empowering about that, because things seem so much worse and so much scarier when we don't name them, because they're unknown. It's like this scary thing looming over your head. You can feel that it's there, but you haven't named it or looked at it, so it feels so much heavier than it really is. What has also helped me is speaking it out loud. A really big part of my shadow self that I was afraid to admit to myself is I have a really big part of me that is so afraid to be seen by other people. And it was so hard for me to admit that to myself, because I always try to come off as this very, grounded, sure-footed, confident person. So to admit that there was a big part of me who is absolutely terrified of truly being seen by people, I was ashamed to admit that to even myself. But when I could write that down and say it out loud to myself and say, wow, there is a big part of me that is afraid to be seen, just claiming that and owning it, that was 90% of the work. The next part is optional, but it's something that for me has been really healing and transformative, and this is to claim whatever it is that you've been suppressing, claim it out loud with a loved one. Speak about it with someone who you trust and who you know is going to support you, and not necessarily give you advice or direction, but just hold the space for you. Now again, this step is optional because you don't want to just go talking about this with anybody. You have to be really careful who you share this part of yourself with, because it is very vulnerable. So if you feel like you don't really have anyone in your life at this moment that you would want to open up to, don't do this. But if you do feel like there's that person who can hold the space for you and really support you and just listen, then I recommend speaking about it out loud with them. And it's so powerful. There's something so incredibly transformative about claiming something as your own, and also claiming that you're aware of it, and the healing starts now. And lastly, the ongoing aspect to shadow work is to begin to develop a relationship with this part of yourself. So what we have to realize about ourselves is that we have so many different parts. We have so many different aspects. When we can look at ourselves as different parts, it helps us to detach from those parts so that we can sort of take a back seat to what's going on and just observe. And this is really beneficial because when we can just observe the different parts of ourselves, we don't get caught up in all of the old stories and the old beliefs and the old traumas, because we're not identifying as that part being solely us. It's like how we don't want to get caught up in our minds. Like, our minds are not who we truly are. And it's the same with these shadow aspects of ourselves. So we can detach from them and observe and start to build a relationship with these different parts of ourselves. And again, 90% of the work is in just acknowledging that these parts exist. Your wounded inner child just wants to be acknowledged. They just want to be seen, and they just want to know that they're loved regardless of what it looks like. Open a dialogue with these parts of yourself where you can communicate with them and just let them know that they're there, but they're not going to be the driver anymore. They're not going to run your life anymore. They can take a back seat, they can relax and know that they're loved and seen, but your highest self is the part that's going to now step forward and take the wheel and guide them where you want to go. There's so much to shadow work, and like I said, there are so many different ways to go about this. So do your research and also just sit with it within yourself and see what feels good and do that. This is something that is an ongoing practice that will continue to unfold and evolve throughout your entire life. And it's also not the point to feel like we constantly have to be healing something within ourselves. You know, life is too short. We need to enjoy and appreciate and respect and honor the healing process, but also know when to just let it go and live in the moment and have fun and experience joy. So don't get so caught up in this that you're like, I have to heal like every single aspect of myself and oh my God, I have so much work to do. Yes, we should always be working on ourselves and growing and evolving and healing parts of ourselves, but we will never be done healing. There is no end goal. So do the healing when it feels right, but don't forget to enjoy life and have fun and be goofy and silly and just be here. I hope that this video helped you. I hope it gave you a little more clarity around what shadow work is and how you can start to do some healing in your own life and how you don't need anything to empower you. You can start doing this work right now, today. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more content. And you can also follow me over on Instagram where I post all the time about more stuff like this. I will have it linked down in the description box below. Let me know if you have any requests for future videos and I'll be sure to do those. I love you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.